Okay, so this next section will pertain mostly to drummers using an electronic drum set. So if you are using an electronic drum set, go ahead and watch this. This will cover setting up a click track for your song, which will be very important for fixing minor errors later on that you can have with these instruments. If you're not using an electronic drum set, so that is to say if you're using an acoustic drum set, this section isn't as vitally important, but it will be helpful to show you this process so that you can have a count-in for when you actually go to play along with your song here. So for this section, of course, again, I'll be working mostly in Logic. For any small changes that may be necessary working in GarageBand, I will show those at the end just to clarify anything. But for the most part, this process will remain largely the same. So this is the first window that pops up when you are starting in your audio workstation project. Again, for electronic drums, we will select Software Instrument. If you're not using an electronic drum set, select Audio. The first thing you'll want to do here to get your drums set up is to scroll to the left in this left side window here and select drum kits. From there, you can select which drum set you want. And for this process, we're just going to go ahead and go with Bluebird for now. Later on, I will discuss swapping out these drum sets and making them sound a little bit better. So don't worry if this sound isn't totally to your liking. Later on, we can go in and actually change the sounds and make it sound a bit better. The next step is to go into your downloads folder or from iTunes, wherever you're getting your song, and just drag that in to the right side working pane here, and it will create an audio track for you. For this, I'll be using a free drumless track here. There are a ton of these online. They're all free, royalty free. They shouldn't get copyrighted or anything on YouTube or Instagram, anything like that if you're using these. So I highly suggest starting out with these. Another great benefit to using these is they usually have the BPM listed somewhere. So you can see that the BPM on this is listed at 120, and I verified that is correct. And thankfully for us, the default tempo of Logic is 120. I think GarageBand used to be 110 or something weird like that, but you'll just want to verify and make sure that it's the right tempo. If it's not, what you'll do is click up at the top middle here and drag your tempo up or down to the correct BPM that you need. Okay, once the tempo is lined up, what you'll do is go to the top here and click on the metronome icon. This will make sure that the metronome is clicking along while you're listening to your song. If for some reason you've gotten out of your working pane here, what you'll just do is click back in somewhere in this dark region here, and that will just put you back into the working pane. Then hit return on your keyboard and then space, and you might find that the audio is actually not lined up. Usually there's a little bit of extra blank audio at the front of these, so the click track won't be lined up with the song that you've got here. This is a pretty easy fix, and we will discuss how to do that now. Before we get too far into how to fix this, I just want to clarify something here. So this white bar that chugs along the screen that shows where you are in the song is called a playhead. So if at any point you need to line up this playhead or make sure that it's playing from the right position wherever you need it, all you'll do is go up to the top of the playhead and click this weird rounded off triangle thing and drag it along the grid. So we click, hold, and drag along the grid just to make sure that we're playing from the right position here. As for lining this up on the track here, so you'll go to the far top right of the screen and adjust the horizontal zoom of the track here. So you can notice if I click and drag this little rounded off triangle, it either zooms in or zooms out. So we want to go zoomed in pretty far so that we can get this lined up. So you'll want to reference where these little white spots that are kind of jumping out of the track are, reference where those are, and make sure that it's lined up with the grid that the playhead is running along. So you can see where it says 1 point something, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Those just show what beat you're on in the song. So you'll get that lined up. I usually like to drag the audio. You can click and drag it to the next measure just to make sure that there's a little bit of space at the beginning. It just makes it easier than trying to chop off the beginning of this audio region. And gives you a little bit of time for the metronome to click in while you're getting ready to record. Okay, so what you'll do now, make sure you're still clicked into the working window. tap return on your keyboard and then hit space with the metronome turned on. Again, you can see at the top of the screen, the metronome is still purple. That means that we will be getting some click playing along, and then you'll just reference with your ear just to make sure that the click is playing along perfectly with the audio track here. Okay, now let's say that you're recording a song where you don't have the BPM. You've looked online, it doesn't have the BPM anywhere. What we're going to do is use a plugin to help us determine the BPM, hopefully. So what you'll do here is make sure that you are on the right track by clicking in this grayed out area here. Make sure you don't click any of the buttons or mess with the pan or the input gain, input monitoring, record arm, solo, anything like that. Just click in this gray area here, and that will make sure that you're on the right track. You probably already are, but it is easy to accidentally get in the wrong area through no fault of your own. It's just something that happens sometimes. So just click on that and make sure that it's highlighted and you're working in the right track here. The next step that you'll do is to head over here and add a plugin to this track. So the plugin that we're going to be selecting is down in the metering tab. Select BPM counter, stereo, and then it will pop up with a BPM counter. Now what you'll do is click back in the working window, make sure that it's highlighted with that blue rectangle again, and click return, click the space bar, and it should count the BPM to the right tempo for you here. So this should hopefully take a lot of work off of your end. If this does not work, then we will go to plan C, which is not a fun plan to be in. Okay, so the song has played and hopefully caught the right tempo for you. So sometimes, I don't know if this is a graphical error or what, but sometimes it may say that the BPM instead of 120 is like 120.1 or 119.9 or something like that. Usually you can round either up or down to the nearest BPM. There aren't too many songs that have been recorded at like 120.5 or 120.7 or something like that. So kind of take this with a grain of salt and just assume that it's the next whole number BPM. Now, once you've got your BPM figured out, let's say it's 135 or 134.9 that's popping up on the thing, go back up to the top middle of the screen and just adjust your BPM to that tempo. Make sure that your metronome is still selected and go back and play once your song is all lined up. And while you're doing this, you'll want to make sure that you listen for quite a long ways, because if you're off by only like 1 or 2 BPM, it can take a little while for the metronome to desync with the song that you're actually listening to. So just make sure that you've listened for quite a ways and the metronome has not desynced from the song in any way. Okay, let's pretend that it still is desyncing and it's not quite right. If for some reason the BPM counter just popped out some really weird number, like if I was doing this and if it popped out with like 100 BPM, even though it's supposed to be at 120, now we have to move on to plan C, which is not very fun. So what you'll do is find a metronome somewhere else, not in Logic, but find a metronome online or on your phone that has the tap for BPM feature. And what you'll do is tap on this button while you're listening to the song, and this should get you somewhere within probably 10 BPM, depending on how good you are at tapping along with this song. These can be a little bit finicky, so if it's bouncing all over the place, try to get it to where it is kind of within that 10 BPM zone. And whatever number it pops out with, go ahead and set your project BPM to that number. Now what you'll do is go back to the beginning, make sure that your song is lined up with the beginning of measure 2, the best that you can, and have the metronome button at the top of Logic highlighted. So now you're just going to be listening and see if the metronome is too fast or too slow for the song. And this is a bit of an arduous process. Remember I said this is not a fun place to be in, but that is really the reality of what you have to do here. So once you've gotten that, you should be pretty well set up with a click track to play along with, and this will help us a lot in the long run. So I know this takes a while now, but it is worth it if we need to fix any errors with our electronic drum recording, which is actually a little bit more common than you would think. And let's say for some reason you still can't get it, you've tried everything. There is a possibility that the song was just recorded without a click track. So if you can figure that out beforehand, definitely do so, because there's nothing worse than trying over and over again to get this this whole stupid thing worked out and it's just not working no matter what you try. The reality is a lot of songs in especially rock music, early metal, stuff like that, they were not recorded with a click track. So if you're doing a classic rock songs, maybe some Creedence Clearwater Revival, maybe some Led Zeppelin, even the early Slipknot albums, I don't think they used a metronome until All Hope Is Gone was recorded. So that's 3 Slipknot albums that I believe weren't recorded with any kind of click track whatsoever. So you'll just want to check on that to make sure that there is actually a solid BPM you can fix yourself onto. Otherwise, this process will all have been in vain. A lot of time wasted, a lot of learning done about this whole process. Before you go to record, this is a nice little thing. I didn't know where else to say this, so I'll just do it here. This audio will probably be very loud, a lot louder than your drum set is coming out. So what we'll do here is just adjust that really quickly by clicking this little circle here and just adjust the input gain here. So what we're going to do is just click that circle, drag it down. I have it to about -12. You may even go a little bit quieter, to be honest, just to save your ears. If you need it to balance out and be a little bit louder while you're recording, you can drag it up or down to your desired volume.